so Frank Abagnale, who wrote Catch Me If You Can, which obviously got made into a big movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. He read my book Ruse, and I did not know. I call him Mr. A now. I did not know Frank, but he read the book and he flipped over it, and was so incredibly generous and supportive. He offered to give a blurb for the book, right? And so, when Frank Abagnale gives you a blurb, of course, you put it on the front cover, which my publishers did. And then, of course, when Frank Abagnale gives you a blurb, it pricks up Hollywood's ears because they're like, well, wait a second. If Frank Abagnale liked this thing and likes this story, man, maybe we should read it. And so, as a result, I think directly because of his kindness and his generosity, Ruse is now in development for a TV series, which is, phenomenal.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident.
Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Robert Kerbeck. Robert's true crime memoir, Ruse, Flying the American Dream from Hollywood to Wall Street, is a story of how a wannabe actor became the world's greatest corporate spy. Frank Abagnale, author of Catch Me If You Can, said, Kerbeck has mastered the art of social engineering, or what he calls rusing, and taken it to the whole new level. While Sean Delan, producer of Netflix series Inventing Anna, described Ruse as almost too good to be true with no shortage of wild stories. Kerbeck's previous book, Malibu Burning, the real story behind LA's most devastating wildfire, won a 2021 SoCal Journalism Award and the 2020 IPPY Award and the 2020 Best of LA Award. His writing has appeared in numerous publications, including the Los Angeles Times, San Francisco Chronicle, Los Angeles Magazine, and Lithub's Crime Reads. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Robert. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Thank you, Dwight. I'm excited to be here.
I am excited as well. You have, I guess every little child, maybe every little boy, as my first response is dream of being a spy, of being somebody that gets to do that. As you and I talked about, Catch Me If You Can is one of my favorite stories. And we think about, can we have the ability to portray something to somebody else, be that facade, and pull it off where they believe it and they share their deepest, darkest secrets with that individual. So I'm looking forward to diving deep into this, as well as talking about your books and just you as a person. But one of the things I focus on, as I mentioned to you before we hit record, is a person's origin story. And for those people that are new to watching on the channel or listening, the origin story to me isn't just about, hey, Robert, what's your back end story? And then what does Robert say? He starts talking about out of school, maybe, college, university, whatever. Maybe he's been, a tenacious person in School of Hard Knocks, learned all this stuff. But everything that got you to that point to get started on that started with your origin, your earliest recollections. And I find that the quickest way to collapse timeframes is being vulnerable and letting people know you, the littlest version of you, your earliest recollections, so they can know, like, and trust you. So, Robert, could you please share with me your origin story for your earliest recollections to where you are today?
Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. It's pretty intense. So I grew up in a family with a lot of secrets. And it took me a long time to understand these secrets because obviously they were secrets. So they were things that I wasn't told, I didn't know. But there was a lot of mystery around my father and his father. And I began to piece things together in my teen years and then in my early years. And what I began to learn was that my father was the child of a secret second family. Um, and he was raised by his mother, who was a Jewish woman, and had very little contact with his father, who was an Armenian man. And so here, my father was basically the child of two people that came from these terrible genocides, right? The Armenian genocide in 1915, the Jewish Holocaust in the 1930s and 1940s. And yet my father kind of knew very little about his connection to either family because of this deep, dark secret where he was not allowed to have any contact with the Armenian side because my grandfather was married to an Armenian woman. And yet my grandfather forbid my father from having and learning any Jewish tradition and Jewish cultures because he wanted his son to be raised as a Christian because Armenians are Christians. So very confusing. And of course, growing up in the 50s, like my father did, there was a lot of shame about being an illegitimate child. And so I think that kind of, even though I didn't know it as a little kid, I think that growing up around all those secrets made me ready made in some way, shape, or form to be quite comfortable and quite good at becoming a corporate spy because corporate spies are keeping secrets and trying to find out secrets. And so, in some way, shape, or form, I was the, without knowing it, I was the perfect person to become a corporate spy.
Wow. That's one of the things that I triggered on and was listening to is when you talked about the fact the father forbid any Jewish teaching and wanted him to be Christian because he's Armenian. Isn't that the fact of life, though? We are a culmination of our experiences and the patterns and teachings from our parents who got it from their parents, or maybe it's an aunt or uncle or somebody that's very affluent in our lives. And I find that those pattern teachings, society ingrains them into us from what we are, taught in school, which is all pattern block teaching, which really doesn't teach us to be creative, in my opinion. We're not here to talk about the school system unless you want to, but it is something that I find our pattern starts young. It's locked in by our school systems, by television, by movies, by music, by our friends, family, or relatives will say, you Robert, you should do what your dad does, or Robert, you should do what your mom does. Look how successful they are. Don't you want to be successful? Well, what's a young person gonna go? Well,
Right.
of course I want to
Yeah.
be successful. So
And
they
that,
don't follow their passion or their dreams.
and that's exactly right, because my great grandfather came over from Armenia, obviously escaping, the massacres of the Turks, came over here and he came to Philadelphia, sold horse carriages in Philadelphia before automobiles were invented, later became one of the first car dealers in the Philadelphia area. My grandfather took over that business. My father took over that business, and I was expected to take over that business. And so there you have right there what you were just talking about the pressure to live a life or a journey that somebody else wanted for me rather than my own journey. And of course, young people, it's hard for them sometimes to have the courage to know what their path is. And even if they know what the path is, it takes a lot of chutzpah, there's a little Jewish word, chutzpah, to have the courage to go on that journey because you're a young person and it's scary. I mean, for me, when I was in college, I got bitten by the acting bug. I fell in love with acting. I really wanted to move from Philadelphia to New York to try to be a professional actor. And it seemed insane to me. I didn't know anybody that had been an artist of any ilk, any performer. So, and of course, my father being very practical, and having a successful business, which had been, the placard on the front of the Kerbeck building said since 1899. So there was a lot of pressure on me to continue with that. And I did, when I graduated college, I did go and work for my father at the car dealership. The Kerbeck car dealership still exists today. They're very famous in the Philadelphia area. If you're looking for a deal on a Maserati, tell them that I sent you. But I just didn't feel comfortable. I worked there for about a year or so, selling car sales. Kind of the trickery of car sales didn't feel right, which of course is incredibly ironic that I ended up becoming a corporate spy, where the dishonesty was far worse. But when I moved to New York, I finally got the courage. I moved to New York. Actors need a survival job. Artists need survival jobs because rarely does art pay the bills. And so I asked a buddy. I only knew one person in New York. He had this mysterious job that he mentioned one day, and then he shut up about it right away, like he knew he wasn't supposed to talk about it. I said, "Hey, dude, whoa, 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 what's this job? I'm broke. Help me out." And so he reluctantly got me an interview. I go to the Upper East Side of Manhattan, which, some of your audience may know is kind of the ritzy old money area of Manhattan, New York City, and go to a doorman building, take the elevator up to the penthouse. This woman opens the door. I seem to recall she had a martini and a cigarette. That may be the writer to me exaggerating slightly, but she invited me into the nicest apartment I'd ever seen. So right away, I knew whatever she did, it was very lucrative. And we have a very strange interview. She never asked me anything about my skills. She never tells me a thing about the job, sends me on my way. My buddy calls me. He says, "You're hired, but don't get too excited because no one is able to do this job." And that was when I began to kind of go, yeah, like, this is crazy. Like, what the heck is this job? And I still at that time had no idea that I'd been hired to infiltrate companies and get people to tell me things, secrets, private information about these companies that then we would sell to their biggest rivals.
Wow, that's that journey of, you're a great storyteller, obviously. You're an author, but some people still aren't great at articulating it verbally, and you're very good at that. I could feel the emotion. I could feel your apprehension, and then you open up the door and you look into this apartment and the excitement, and then it's just that's an amazing experience that leads you to your corporate spy journey. What are the chances of that, talking to one person? But the reason I bring that up is I'm a God-fearing person, but I don't expect other people necessarily to be. Some people believe the universe, some people believe it's things just happen. They can talk it into existence, but somebody or something was overlooking and saying, "Hey, this is where Robert needs to go." I believe the universe, karma, God, whatever, blessed you, and look where you've accomplished. Thank goodness for it, because we wouldn't be talking if it wasn't for
That's
that.
right.
So
yeah,
I can sure appreciate that too. The intense pressure of wanting to work with family. My dad, very successful entrepreneur with a business, same sort of idea. I remember the day back in, like it was yesterday, 1988, sitting in his office telling him that I didn't want to take over the business, that I didn't want to work with him. I walked out and never came back.
Yeah. I had that exact same,
the disappointment.
I had that exact same moment.
Yeah.
The story you told, I had it too. And I, now as obviously as an older person, as a, older man, I realize how heartbreaking that must have been for my father,
Mine too.
and as a
And
young person, you don't see
years
that part of it.
later, it hit me, Robert.
Yeah.
It did. It hit me what I had done to my father, though I did it, somewhat respectfully. I was in my early 20s. I wasn't that old. And he had been grooming me since I was about 12 years old, 13 years old. Come to work for him, work in the back. I had to push brooms. He owned a farm implement dealership, one of the largest in Canada. He was the largest in the western part of North America. And he had high expectations, and initially I thought it was really cool. But then I realized my own aspirations and dreams, and I actually went through electronics engineering at a technical college. I owned a computer consulting firm for many years before I ever got, like just about a decade before I ever got into finance. That was my stick. I liked tinkering with things, and I liked building things. I like coding. I like doing all the things that where my dad was completely foreign. His was, here's a part, here's a picture. This, they need that part. Okay, here the mechanic, you go help him. He's going to teach you how to put this thing together like a puzzle, and you're going to help repair stuff with the heavy duty mechanics. You're going to sweep floors. You're going to count this, count that. It was just like, to me, it was just mundane. To him,
Yeah.
it was exciting, but one person's level of excitement can be somebody's version of, torture or
Yeah.
just
That. Yeah.
boredom, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
appreciate you sharing that. That's amazing, though, that we have a lot of parallels. Speaking of parallels, the next thing I really wanted to talk to you about, when I was reading your stuff last night, I'm reading that, okay, so you're a wannabe aspiring actor that all of a sudden got into the role of being a corporate spy. So I see a lot of parallels. In the order to get to be a deep and effective person that can gather information, you would have to be a great actor. So regardless of you going in and becoming an actor in the, a professional actor in the movies or commercials or whatever, you still became that actor, in my opinion, because you would never have been good at what you did if you didn't know how to play that facade, to put on that game face. So what were the beginning days like on the journey of becoming that master corporate spy? And did you, throughout that process, were you a person that had a game plan, or did it just fall into place naturally? Did you goal set? What did you do in order to get to that high level of success?
It was all seated, by the seat of my pants. I So I'm in New York, and right away I was getting jobs as an actor. I mean, I was doing, really great theater. Did start in some pretty, well-respected plays. I starred opposite James Gandolfini, the star of The Sopranos. I starred in a play opposite Callista Flockhart, who today is married to Harrison Ford. I got reviewed in the New York Times, the New Yorker magazine, rave reviews. Became a member of the world famous Actors Studio. Got invited up to Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward's, Upper East Side, magnificent apartment, the nicest apartment probably in the world, and hung out with them because they had seen my work and they were big fans. And so all of these great things were happening, and I was using the corporate spying job simply to pay my bills, simply to kind of, I mean, when I first started doing it, it's funny now. I laugh at it when I like, say this in interviews. I was getting $8 an hour to be a corporate spy. I mean, it's pretty funny. And of course, at the time, as I'm a young person, and I rationalized it in terms of the ethics of it. And I'm not saying that the ethics of it were right, but I'm saying here's how I rationalized it: that a lot of the information we were getting, yeah, there were secrets and da 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 and kind of stuff like that, but a lot of it was also around who the top people were at competitor firms, who the rock stars were, because we all know, and I always use the football analogy, and we see it in football NFL teams all the time. If you sign a great free agent away from one team and you bring them to your team, all of a sudden your team can be, their season can turn around. They can become a great, because now you poached somebody from a rival, right? And corporations are incredibly cutthroat about stealing top people from their rivals. And remember, back in the day before LinkedIn, there was no way for companies to know who the top people were at competitors. So we would get the organizational charts of these clients, and then we would find out, and your listeners may not know this, every corporation ranks their employees. They have some way of ranking their people. They have some internal metric that they use to say who's good and who's not good. And we would find that out because, when somebody goes to interview for a job with a rival, are they going to say that I'm one of the worst people on the team? Oh, I'm one of the middle, no, they go in and they say, oh yeah, I'm the top person in my group. I'm the second person. Oh yeah, I'm one of the leaders. Well, we would find out if it was true or not. We would find out who the rock stars were so that our clients would only be trying to steal the people that we had verified were the best, right? And that was incredibly valuable. And so I rationalized the job that we were helping people get better jobs. We were helping people move from one firm to another firm and get paid more money. And again, that's the rationalization that I used. But in the beginning, we were doing that for $8 an hour. I was in New York. I was living the life of the young up and coming actor, and it was all great. And then at a certain point, my agent said, it's time for you to go to Los Angeles and start, working in television. And I did. And of course, I took my corporate spying job with me because most of the spying we did over the phone. When we first started doing it, we went in person. We would go to conferences, we'd go to a bar, we'd go to an event. But we quickly learned that the anonymity of the phone call enabled us to get so much more information, because a lot of times corporations, and this is true today too, they have so many offices all over the world. They have so many employees in Dublin and Tokyo and Charlotte, in New York, in Los Angeles, that you could call and portray yourself as somebody in one of those offices, and you could get someone on the phone and they'd go, "Oh, it's Bill in the LA office. Hey, Bill, how's it going, buddy? What's going on? What do you need? How can I help you? Oh, I'm jammed up. I'm off site. There's a problem. There's an emergency." And we would make up these stories and we would create these kind of personas and crises. And then the people on the other line, on the other end of the line, because everyone in the corporate world is trained to be what? A good teammate. They would give you information that they should never, ever give you, right? Without even verifying that you were who you said you were. And so we would get this information. So when I moved to LA to continue my career, and started working in big TV shows like Star Trek and Melrose Place and NYPD Blue and ER, and and big parts, lead roles. I was always doing this spying job. And of course, the amount of money I made went from $8 to $9 to 10. It still was not a lot of money. It was only when my acting career started to wane, all of a sudden in the late 90s, early 2000s, where the information that we were getting became incredibly valuable, and corporations started hearing about me, approaching me, and I went from making $8 an hour to, at one point, I was making $2 million a year spying for the largest corporations in the world.
Wow. That's your journey, though, is amazing. Anywhere along the way, let's say if your acting career hadn't waned at all, where would you be? Like, you could speculate, but you wouldn't necessarily know. It's just amazing, the little integral things that I hear happening that take you into a trajectory. Even you mentioning the fact that you were young, you didn't think about the repercussions of what you were doing. You justified it that you were helping somebody get a better job, but in reality, if you actually had the wisdom to think about the back end, you were hurting other people too. So but that's just like life. Every time you hear a no, somebody else is hearing a yes, or vice versa. Isn't that life?
Yeah.
It is. And once we realize that, it wouldn't have mattered, even if you had that epiphany that you knew that you were doing something nefarious or shady on the other end and hurting people, you were still helping people. There's still a place for it. Even today, there probably, like you were saying, there's still a place today even for corporate spying. There just is.
Corporate spying is alive and well.
Dog eat dog world.
It's so competitive. The social engineering phone call, what I call rusing, the phone call is alive and well in a weird sort of way. It's even more powerful today because it's done less frequently. So when somebody does get a call that seems like an emergency situation, which of course is what spies, and by the way, all cyber criminals do. We all get phishing emails and texts and hacks, and they're all saying, "Oh my God, you've been hacked. You need to deal with this right now. You need to click on this. You need to do this. You need to send me an email. You need to call me," because they're using time pressure to get you to do something you shouldn't do. And that was what we did as spies, to get people to give us information, whatever the private information was about a company's secret plans. Were they expanding? What was their new pricing? What was their new product? As I said earlier, who the rock stars were, anything and everything that our clients wanted to know. Again, going back to the football analogy, we were hired to get the playbook on our competitors so that our client knew every play, every formation their rivals were running. And you think about that. And if you, in a football game or any sporting, you knew everything your competitor was going to do, that's a pretty big competitive advantage.
Well, yeah, you're giving them game tape to watch or review. That's the way I look at it. You're the person that's filming behind and saying, "Okay, here's what you did. Here's what they did. Now learn from it, become better, become greater." So I find it fascinating, though, in the corporate spy world, that the fact that technology really, you'd think it would have made it worse, but I think it would make it easier, as you mentioned, because you get all these texts nowadays and people randomly click on them, or they'll click on a link in a computer and it's putting on spyware onto their computer,
Yep.
opens up a port. I won't get into the technical aspects because well, we'll talk about that in a bit. I used to be global internet security specialist. I was certified for North America. I did it for many years in my corporate background with IT, and the amount of stories that I have, even from those days of my life, are amazing. Technology's made it easier in a lot of
Yes.
ways for people to spy. And listeners, here's an example. Somebody, you may think, oh, with the advent of call display, if somebody called like Robert to pretend that he's from LA office, it'll show that, it's not coming from the LA office. You can spoof that ID. It's so
Yeah.
easy. It's not even funny. I can
Yeah.
spoof it and show that I'm in the LA office of Proctor Silex, or pardon me,
Yeah.
or whatever. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what company. Probably said the company's name wrong, but regardless, you get my point. Technology has made it easier,
Right.
right?
Every time there would be an invention, we would go, oh my God, our spying career is over. This is going to kill us. We're dead in the water. And then all of a sudden we go, wait a second, this is going to help us. And we would take that technology. Call spoofing is a great one we use all the
Yeah.
time. And it would actually make things easier for us. And that was the thing that's amazing. And, here we live in this world where there's so much cybercrime, whether it's against individuals, whether it's against corporations. We hear about ransomware, which of course is becoming a bigger and bigger issue every day,
Scary.
exponentially
Scary.
scary.
Very
And
scary.
so the things that I talk about in Ruse about how not to fall victim to this type of scamming, social engineering, and again, not just the phone call, the text, the email, the things that I
Everything.
talk about are really even more important today, even more relevant today, because and it's not just big business. In a weird sort of way, small businesses are even more vulnerable to the kind of spying and social engineering that I talk about, because a small business, you think about a small business owner, you have one location, you have two locations, you have five locations. For you to get shut down by cyber criminals that use social engineering to find out things that enable them to hack into your systems and shut you down, I mean, that's devastating. Sometimes you can't even recover from it, right? Because not only are you now having to pay a ransom, which you can't afford, but you have all this reputational damage. I speak about cybercrime and how spies and cyber criminals use social engineering and hacking to perpetrate these attacks. And I just was asked by this hospital for some help. A hospital, 5 locations, shut down. A doctor could not take an appointment. They couldn't do anything on their systems, completely shut down. Now imagine how devastating that is for a company like that, right? I mean, it's a hospital. You can't book an appointment with the patient, So it's very, very serious. And the kind of the things that I talk about in the book about, you see in the book, there are all these scenes where you see me doing what I do. So you understand how basically how the ruse works. And you can now learn from that so that you won't fall victim to those types of crimes.
Yeah. It's amazing though, really today, how people are naive. And even when I educate them about, don't click on this, don't do that, my own parents are prime example, how the elderly are gone after. But you talked about small businesses. I'm familiar with small businesses where this has happened, because
Yeah.
even back in the day, technology's changed. It's gotten more advanced, but because it's been 20 years since I left that industry, I still have a lot of connections and contacts. It hasn't changed a lot. It's just gotten more integral and more deceptive, what they can utilize for technology to hurt a small business. And literally small businesses that I used to coach, and even businesses that I deal with on the finance side, conversations will come up about their computer stuff, and I'll tell them you should do this, this, and that. I have a friend that owns 10 different, I won't even say what kind of business it is, 10 different locations in my city of 1.4 million people. And I've had conversations with him about his system and how easy it is, just from talking with him, how easy it is that he could be hacked. Oh, you've been in the
Right.
industry in years. What do you know? I said, well, you may feel safe until you're not. And then you're going to
Right.
be, you regret it. Well, that's a lot of money that I got to spend. Not really. You don't have to spend that much. You just got to start thinking smarter,
Yeah.
not harder, get it done. And realizing that you have a responsibility to all your patient data. You have a responsibility, like you said, to be able to book appointments. Like that happened with that hospital. It's scary. One of the things that I like to ask though is, can you share some or even just one, wow, I just slipped up moments and glad I didn't get caught?
Ah, yeah. Well, so here I am in LA now, and I'm working. I told you about I'm drinking beers with Paul Newman. I'm peeing next to Al Pacino. I'm getting hit on by Kevin Spacey. I'm doing this exercise video with O.J. Simpson the week before he became the world's most infamous double murderer. I'm taking J Lo on a blind date to a Dodgers game. I'm living this great acting life and doing this ruse thing on the side, making my $8 an hour. I don't know where I was at this point. Maybe I was making 10, maybe I was making 12. But again, I was not getting rich off this job. And at one point, my buddy who got me the job, in the book, I call him Pax, he's in New York now. And he calls me up and he says, they're after me. And I said, what? He says, they came to my apartment when I wasn't here. And they told my landlord that I needed to turn myself in. And I was like, what? Who? And he's like, I don't know who. I was probably the FBI, And now all of a sudden we're on the phone. He's on his phone, I'm on my phone, and I realize if the FBI is showing up at his door, then they're tapping his phone, which means they're tapping my phone because I'm doing the same thing he's doing, and we shared a lot of clients because we were friends. And so I'm like, well, if they're coming after him, it's only a matter of time before they're knocking on my door, and basically, when we first did this job, we met with an attorney, Pax and I, because we wanted to know, is this illegal what we were doing? And we met with the attorney, and the attorney said, it's in the gray, the very, very dark gray. And, but we were actors, we were desperate. We didn't have any other jobs. So we were like, well, we're going to try to, do this and not get caught. And now all of a sudden it looked like we'd been caught and we were in big trouble. And we began, Pax was, I mean, it was like every authority in the world was after him. And now I'm walking around, I'm seeing white vans parked pretty much everywhere I go. And I'm like, oh my God, like they're surveilling me, and it was really frightening. My hair started to fall out. And at a certain point, we started reading about this guy who at the time was the world's most famous hacker. And we were reading these articles that everybody in the world was after this guy. He was on the run. He was on the lam. He was trying to shut down the internet, which was just kind of becoming, commercially accessible and available. And so everybody had teamed up, all the authorities, all the phone companies. And all of a sudden, one day he was arrested. And what we all of a sudden put together was they were coming after us because they thought we were him. They thought we were this world's most famous hacker. We were trying to shut down the internet. And the craziest thing was, because, what we were doing was, definitely, obviously in the very dark gray, and certainly anybody could have prosecuted us for it and probably put us away for that too. But once they found this hacker guy, who was arrested as a domestic terrorist, went to jail for years in solitary confinement, 23 hours a day. Once they found him, the authorities were so busy patting themselves on the back and lauding themselves because we read the articles in the New York Times and they got him. The internet is safe. They saved the internet. Well, they forgot about us. They kind of just kind of let us go. And we could not believe that we had escaped from such a close call, right? And it was really just a miracle. And after that, we started to make a lot of changes about how we did the job, and we were much more careful. We definitely started staying away from researching, the phone companies at the time, of course, who they became kind of the first big tech firms. So they were really kind of the best at sussing out when they were getting spied on. And so then we really started to focus more on financial companies, because there was a lot of money in the Wall Street firms, and yet they didn't have the level of technical sophistication to catch us.
Wow. I like how you brought up the fact, pat on the back. They're patting themselves in the back and going, rah, rah, look what we've done. I hear in my whole life, all the way back to when I was a kid, companies or individuals, doesn't even need to be a business, they're patting themselves in the back and they celebrate too long. And I'm
Yeah,
not against people celebrating. You need to celebrate, but you also have to understand that the worst thing about celebrating too long is you get camped in a person's mindset or a business mindset. And you brought that up and it made me smile because so many people are like that. Meanwhile, when they think they've got the win, there's so many other things going on behind the
yeah,
scenes that they're still growing and
yeah,
still
yeah,
prospering. That So those listening, celebrate in life. Don't get camped in your
yeah.
mindset. Realize there's always somebody out there that knows more than you, that is pushing forward faster than you, and that's not a bad thing. But if you want to keep up with, whatever you're trying to accomplish, don't celebrate too long. Don't forget
That's
to
right.
celebrate, but just celebrate and move on. And that's the
Yeah,
biggest thing I see is the death in corporate, because I've done lots of corporate consulting, is they camp too long because they are celebrating that one large contract or that one large job, and they're not realizing that corporations, business, people in life is like a leapfrog effect. You're filling your pipeline, that pipeline come out and give you a success. Did you put something else in the pipeline? Did you have
right.
something that's leaping over top so that you're
Yeah,
always pushing forward? Most
yeah.
don't do that. So I like
No.
how you brought up that pat on the back. I know it's kind of a weird offshoot, but that's
No,
just
it's totally true. I'm a big NFL football fan. My team is the Philadelphia Eagles. Fly Eagles fly, 13-1. And our big
awesome.
rivals are the Dallas Cowboys. And last year, it was kind of the end of the season. There was a meaningless game. I think it was the last game of the season. It didn't really matter for anything. And the Cowboys beat us. I don't know. It was like 51-10, or they just killed us, right? And they're jumping and celebrating in the end zone and blah, blah, blah. Well, the game didn't mean anything. And the next week, the Cowboys go into the playoffs and they lose, right? And for me, that was an example that I enjoyed of a team celebrating something that there was no need to celebrate. That it didn't matter, right? The thing that was important to focus on was a playoff game, which they lost, right? And so again, in life, you don't want to get too big, too high, too soon.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a huge hockey fan, as we had talked about. I've followed the Edmonton Oilers since before they even got into the NHL, since the 70s, growing up in Canada. And I think about all the coaches we've had. We've gone through so many coaches, and we replaced our coach last year with an AHL coach who coaches the farm team for the Oilers. And the reason I bring him up is because it's something that you mentioned. He would, if he gets interviewed today after the Oilers have won or lost, and you get the sports, people interviewing him, all the mics in his face, all the questions, and they'll say, "What are you going to do now?" He says, "Well," he says, "tomorrow night we play in Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, whatever. We've got less than 18 hours. We got to fly there. We got to have our game face on, and we're going to the next game. We're not worried about what did we do right or what did we do wrong. Oh, we won. We're going to celebrate for the next 20 minutes." He would say that in his interviews. You can go
Mm,
listen to him. We'll celebrate for 20 minutes, and
yeah,
that's
there you go.
it.
Yeah,
There's a defined celebration. There's a defined boohoo woohoo moment. We need to keep our brains moving forward. This is
right,
what we're doing. Who are we playing against tomorrow? We're going to pat ourselves in the back for a moment and move on, and
right,
not get
right,
caught up in it. So
right.
I loved you bringing that up. So, again, obviously focusing on what you've developed as a fascinating career, fascinating entrepreneurship of your life. What has been their most rewarding catch me if you can moment that you've gone through in your illustrious career?
It's funny you mentioned that because I'll tell a little bit about. So Frank Abagnale, who wrote Catch Me If You Can, which obviously got made into a big movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. He read my book Ruse, and I did not know. I call him Mr. A now. I did not know Frank, but he read the book and he flipped over it, and was so incredibly generous and supportive. He offered to give a blurb for the book, right? And so when Frank Abagnale gives you blurb, of course, you put it on the front cover, which my publishers did. And then, of course, when Frank Abagnale gives you a blurb, it pricks up Hollywood's ears because they're like, well, wait a second. If Frank Abagnale liked this thing and likes this story, man, maybe we should read it. And so as a result, I think directly because of his kindness and his generosity, Ruse is now in development for a TV series, which is, phenomenal, right? And I
Congratulations.
thank you. And I don't think it would have happened without Frank supporting it. But Frank has also said to me, look, you're not a spy anymore. You've given that up. You're writing this book. You're outing yourself as a spy. You're showing what you did, in all its, deceit and manipulation. You reckon with the moral issue in the book. And now you have to talk to people, to organizations, to help them not fall victim to spies, again, what I call rusing, social engineering, hacking, phishing. And so that's, part of why I'm here today, part of why I wrote the book, and part of why I get asked to speak now. Frank actually recommended me to his speaker organization. That's how kind he is. And so that's kind of one of the things that has really been wonderful about, the experience of, writing a book, outing myself as a spy. And the other thing that has been shocking to me, I think your listeners and your audience will laugh at this, is, so, here I write this book. I say I was a corporate spy. I can kind of write it because the statute of limitations has expired on any potential crimes I've committed. So the thing I found most shocking about writing the book was how many corporations reached out to me after reading my book saying, Robert, we read your book or we listened to it on Audible and we want to hire you as a spy. And I said, guys, don't you understand? I put a target on my back. I basically said, hey, corporate spy here. Like, I can't go in corporate spy anymore. And they're like, why not? We'll pay you this. We'll pay you that. I'm like, I could not believe how many emails I got from major corporations that were so excited to hire me as a spy, because I'm here to tell your audience, if you're looking to pivot to a new career, corporate spying, very lucrative, and corporations are desperate for corporate spies. So if your audience wants to pivot, they can reach out to me and I'll tell them how to do it.
Time to have that $9.95 course, Robert. Right here, go to this offshoot of my website. You for $9.95, you too can learn how to be a corporate spy and make kazoodles of barrel loads full of money. It's really interesting though how society will get a hold of somebody and not use common sense to realize that you were burned. Like that, just that floors me. It really does.
I know.
It's like these people are the echelon of corporate intelligence, supposedly, yet they can't see this most simplest things. And I think that's why it's easy to ruse them. I just, in my own experience, I can have conversations, and I believe in wordsmithing a lot. I'm really, I like the thesaurus. As I was growing up, I'd look at it and go, well, how can I say the same thing with a different word that'll trigger a different body response or a different emotional response? I really didn't get it until I got older and started putting more effort in it. But really, at the end of the day, I sit down with companies, I've gone and spoken at different events, and I've played with it, or I'll listen back to even to my podcasts. I'll watch them and I'll see, well, Robert's face went this. And I said, I said it that way. Maybe next time I should say it this way. And it's a trial and error thing with me for wordsmithing, not in all cases. Sometimes it's obvious what a word or a phrase is going to do and trigger. But wordsmithing is important because in your line of work or former line of work, if you didn't know what to say or how to say it, you were dead in the water and caught.
Dead in the water. And what, when you think about being a corporate spy, you think about, having the gift of gab, that I could charm people, I could manipulate people, I could use language and words, and that is absolutely the case. But equally important, and maybe even more important to be a great corporate spy, is the ability to listen. I could hear in your voice, in your tone of voice, in the silence on the line, I could hear if you were buying my story, if you were believing my ruse, my ploy. I could hear, and then I could adjust and then there were times where I realized that the person on the other end of the line was not going to give me the information. And so rather than push it too far, when they started questioning me or doubting me, now my job wasn't to get the information out of them, because I wasn't going to get the information out of them. But now my job was to calm them down so they weren't running around the corporation telling everybody, hey, I got a very odd call. I think it was somebody fishing for information on the XYZ product. Hey, everybody, I'm sending out a company-wide email. Don't talk to this guy. I don't want that. And so what I would say is, they go, well, if you're really who you say you are, you send me an email. I said, no problem. I'm going to put it all down. I know this call seemed a little strange, but I'll send you an email from my company email, and it will explain exactly why we need this information. Yeah, that would be great. That's what I want. I'm not trying to give you a hard time here. If you send me that email, everything, okay, great. I will have it to you within an hour. Oh, fantastic. Look, I'm sorry I doubted. Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, I'll get it to you by the end of the day. I got one or other two things I got to do first, but I will have it to you by the end of the day, blah, 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 blah. And worst case scenario, you'll have it on your desk first thing tomorrow morning. You'll have that either. Okay, great. Now they hop off the phone. Now what I've done is I've bought time, because first I said I'd have it within an hour to calm them down. Then when they were calmed down, I'd say, oh, by the end of the day. Now I've said, when you come to work tomorrow, worst case scenario, the email explaining what I needed and why. So now they're not calling anybody. They're not saying, because they're waiting on this email that I've said is going to come. Well, that email is never going to come, but it's bought me the time now to go to someone else in the corporation to find someone else who's going to give me the information. And you said something earlier, which was not only fantastic, but true, which is the easiest marks in a corporation are often the most senior individuals, right? Doesn't make a lot of sense. You would think the people that are at the C level or the senior vice president level or the executive vice president level, they've got usually multiple degrees, and they've got an MBA, and they've got this degree, and they have masters and a PhD. And I'm here to tell you, those are the people that I generally went after. The assistants and the receptionists, the gatekeepers, they're trained not to release information. They're trained to be suspicious. That's their job. But you get a big executive on the phone and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I cannot believe this guy is telling me this information. He's telling me the product that they're just developed, the pricing structure that they're setting up, the new office that is a secret because they don't want.
I think of peacocking. I think they're peacocking. Yeah. They've got their plume out and they're showing how beautiful they are.
And for a corporate spy, there is nothing better than a talker. And again, for your audience, another group of people that I think talk, way too much, share way too much information are young people. Young people have grown up in an era of digital transparency. And so, there's just like, wow, there's no privacy anymore. But I'm here to tell you, when you're working, within the confines of a corporation, again, whether small, medium, or large, but I'm here to tell you that your senior level executives do not want you telling people on the phone about the new deal you're working on, the new pitch that you just went on, the new client you're about to sign, the new product they do not want that information out there.
Because our young people need to be, they've gotten to a point where if they're not getting their ego stroked or getting recognition or accolades, they're looking for it externally, pardon me. So somebody's calling them up or sending them a message and they get to peacock. All right. Yeah. They get to show off. I agree with you. They're a big target.
Yeah.
Big target.
And that's what spies are looking for. And, now, again, turning technology around to our advantage. So now, if I were about to spy on your company, and by the way, give me 45 minutes and I can find out anything I want to know about your company. So what I would do is I'd look on LinkedIn and I'd look for new employees. And then I would present myself as an executive from a different office from where they were based. And then I would call that person and I would get that person to tell me whatever they knew, use their intranet to look up and find out whatever I wanted to know. And then even better, if there was information that I wanted that they didn't have access to or they didn't know, I would already have an idea of who would know that information and who would have access. And I would ask them to call that person for me, because now they're internal. And then they would call, and basically I would turn them into my mole. They would not know they were my mole.
Your credibility.
Exactly. So now they would call the chief technology officer's assistant and say, hey, this is John. I'm an analyst over here. I got one of our regulators who's off site, meeting with the regulators in Washington, D.C. And he just asked me this question. And, and she go, oh, well, it's kind of weird you need this, John. You're in, you're in legal. What do you, well, I know, but I'm trying to help the guy out. He's, okay, blah, 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 blah. Because it's internal, and everybody's trained to be a good corporate teammate. And if the person John's internal, which he is in this scenario, the person there is going to go, well, I don't know what he wants this for, but he's with us, so there must be a legitimate reason. Sure, here you go.
No
Right?
vetting process, yeah.
No vetting, whatever. And so now I'm getting somebody internally to basically spy for me. And that's what I tell corporations all the time. I do not need to hack your systems if I can hack your people. The weakest link in cybersecurity is always the human being. And if you're not training and educating your employees about this type of rusing, about these kind of very sophisticated ploys, all the money you spent on your technology and your network and your server and your firewall and your encryption is a waste. You've just wasted all that money because you didn't train your people.
Yeah, such great points you bring up. And I find a lot of companies have too much pride in the sense that they don't want to admit that there is a weak spot. So they don't want to invest the money to hire somebody like you as a consultant and say, Robert, come on in here. Let's train the staff to not get caught up in these ruse, right?
Right.
I think I think it'll always happen because there's always somebody new coming in that slips through the crack of even if you implement a training, there's always going to be a backdoor into doing corporate spying.
Yeah. And I think the issue is a lot of times technical people that work in technology departments, what are they? They're very technical, right? So they're looking at the technical side because that's how their brain works. They're not always, but a lot of times not as well-versed or comfortable with the emotional side, the human side of the equation. So they're just looking at the system. And I think that's part of the reason that the technology group doesn't utilize the services, and what we call penetration testing, and penetration testing related not in terms of the technical, but the social engineering human side. And I think that's part of the problem is the tech departments themselves, they just don't see it. They just don't, their brains just are not wired to think, oh, wait a second, there's this actor guy. I mean, what are the odds that somebody's going to call you up and go, hello, this is Gerhard calling from the office in Frankfurt, Germany. We have the European Union regulators here, and we need some help from the States, right? What are the odds that someone's going to be doing fake accents, pretending they're calling from one of your foreign offices? No, it's ludicrous. And so when somebody at a corporation would get one of our calls where we would do accents, they believe it because it's just not in their brain that, wait, somebody is going to be pretending to be somebody from one of our real offices, using a real name, doing a really good accent. Like it doesn't compute because they haven't been trained that that's going on. So what do they do when Gerhard calls? Do they say nine? No.
They're puking all the information they can, and they're also pumping out their chest because they're being a good team player, like you said, right?
And so they're never happier to give anyone information than my man Gerhard or Manfred or whatever the real name, because we would use the real names. We would impersonate people so that if they looked us up on the internet, they go, oh, there is a Gerhard in our Frankfurt office. Oh, there is a Gerhard in our London office, Oh, he is a legitimate guy, And because you're doing this accent and, it's one of the things we found is the more outlandish the ruse, the more believable it became.
Yeah, and that makes sense because people like getting caught up in sensationalism and, they just do. And our whole movie, TV industry or entertainment and life in general, or even families, is centered around drama. People feed off that because drama, those listening and watching, being drama based or making something really sensationalized is literally makes you be able to escape from your reality that you don't like. And most people are caught in a hamster wheel of life. They don't like their own reality. So if you can stroke their ego just a little bit, it's going to be a plethora of information. Doesn't matter if it's just in a family. I've been in family situations. I've sat with clients for 20 years in my business and coached them. And people will say, well, you'll never be able to get through my brother-in-law and sister or my parents. And then all of a sudden, months later, hey, did you ever? Yeah, we've been working together for 4 or 5. How did you get through to them? Well, I'm me. I know how to say things in order to extract what I need in order to give them what they need. So that's another thing. Manipulation and wordsmithing is a good thing if it gets good results, whether it's corporate spying or whether it's dealing with a client or my family. I think wordsmithing is something we should all practice because it gets you what you need in a less period of time when your anxiety's less, or just everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because people are creatures that are not like a computer that can't be programmed. You think you can program, but they're not. And you've proven that time and time again that, you think that person's not going to do it or should know better, and they're in the IT department, yet they're the most vulnerable, or the higher level person that should know better. That's why a lot of corporations, when you call them, you have to go through roadblocks before you'll ever get to speak to that corporate person. In my mind, that's because that corporate person is loose lips sink ships.
Yes,
right?
That's right. Yeah, I know.
They're great at their job, but they don't know how to keep anything contained or compartmentalized. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, it amazed me. I would get executives, and a lot of times guys, the guys were the male executives at the highest levels were the easiest marks, because I would kind of go bro to bro, and I'd be an executive from some other office that they knew of, maybe had spoken to once, because remember, these are big companies, so they would know who I was saying I was. And they'd go, oh, hey, Bill, yeah, oh, yeah, well, you were on that conference call with me the other day, with 22 other, yeah. So they believe, and then you start talking and, oh, hey, your unit, boy, you've been killing it over there. Yeah, well, we just, we haven't even announced it yet, but we just booked blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, I guess I shouldn't even say it because we didn't even sign the contract yet, but it's looking really good. What we did is we signed this deal, and we're going to give him this, but we're not going to, and they're telling me this entire deal that he is not booked yet, which then my client, guess what they're going to do? They're calling.
Yeah. They're going to scoop them.
Better. Yeah. Yes. They're going to offer better pricing, better this, better that. And they're going to steal that account right out from under this guy. Right. So there's an example of somebody who should never, ever be giving this information out over the phone. And look, again, it goes back to your listeners, for themselves individually, for their company, for their parents, right? If you don't know, don't do anything. I have a big expression: put the device down. When you get the crazy call, the crazy text, the crazy email, put the device down, walk away, take 30 seconds. 30 seconds. It's not long. 30 seconds and think. And I guarantee you, you take that 30 seconds, you will not click on the link. Your parents will not click on the link. Because once you think about it, you go, wait a second, does that make any sense that somebody's saying that they hacked this account, or they got this or that? And all of a sudden you realize it doesn't make sense. There's something about it that's not right. And as soon as you have that, that awareness, you're not going to click on it. You're not going to do any of the things that are going to get you into trouble. The problem is when that phishing text, email, phone call comes in, is that you react. And that's what they want. They want the click. You reacted. Because now
that's why they're using specific words, specific phrases,
Correct.
Maybe a picture, maybe a subject line header. So those listening or watching, they're doing it intentionally. It's back to that wordsmithing, that word manipulation. So be cognizant of it. Listen to Robert. Take that 30 seconds. And I always tell people, if you're unsure, the beautiful tool called Google, you could literally go in, you can go to Snopes, SNOPES. You can go and research just about anything and find out whether it's a scam.
Yep.
And there's stuff that they used to do back in the 90s, in the advent of the internet in the mid 90s, with email scams that went into the 2000s to 2010 that are still being regurgitated, and they'll just change little things. You can find out a lot of things on that with the power of Google, whether or not something's a scam. And if it gives you even a little bit of doubt, don't click for sure.
Yeah.
Right. If you're sitting there going, well, I got something yesterday. It's really bothering me, Dwight. I got to click on it. I got to do this and do that. Don't just Google it.
Yeah.
Call up somebody that's outside of that situation and explain it to them and hear what they have to say. Always be open to information flow and whether or not something is legit or not, right? Unfortunately, but we're going to get moving on. We talked at the beginning of this about me getting into doing 2 interviews and stuff. We're going to have to get you back on because there's some things I'm already skipping over that I'd like to know, but I want to jump into, because we're getting to you're very engaged conversation. I appreciate you. You're great at storytelling. Your life is amazing. Obviously, there's been trials and tribulations throughout it, but look where you are today. You're a person that's always climbing, not camped, as we talked about. So I was going to talk about your first book, but I'm actually going to skip over that, and we'll talk about that another time and talk about your second book, right? Your origin from a wannabe actor to a corporate spy. Can you share with us one pivotal part of what a listener will experience in going through your book and reading it?
The thing that I'm most proud of with Ruse is it's kind of 2 books. There's the whole corporate spying, corporate espionage, which is crazy because when my publishers bought the book, they said no one's ever written a book. There's never been a book written by a corporate spy before, and I'll take them at their word for that. So it's something you've never seen before, the crazy hijink shenanigans that we used and did to get information. So that's one part of the book. But then there's this whole kind of Hollywood tell-all insider thing, because I was working with, I was getting hit on by Kevin Spacey. Yoko Ono hung up on me. I danced with O.J. Simpson for 3 days before he became the world's most infamous double murderer, right? So there are all these insane kind of Forrest Gump moments where I'm working with people at these moments right before their world changed, So it's kind of 2 books. So it's 2 books in one. I wrote Ruse during COVID. Obviously, that was a terrible time, and so I wanted to write something that was fun, and that's a page turner. And Ruse is a fast read. People say it reads like a spy novel, but I'm here to tell you that everything in it is true. I've written a true book about lying.
That's awesome. So we'll reiterate, the title is Ruse: Lying, the American Dream from Hollywood to Wall Street. I love the title too. It's just it's but that's, people don't realize, I don't think they realize enough, Robert, and you can interject on this, the subject line, the title, like subject from an email, how you start off a text, how you start off a title of a podcast, a book, is so important. It all goes back to wordsmithing. Correct. Right. And
yeah.
what when I read the title of that book, what does that invoke in me? Yeah. Right now, right? American Dream. How many people, even in Canada, we have the American Dream? That's like, wow, and then you think about Hollywood. I like movies. Wall Street. I like money too. All right. So it's all little things that just looking at it. And how does it trigger in other people? I don't know. But great title to your book. So check out, obviously, you want to check out Robert's book. It's nice to hear that it's on Audible. Reason I say that is I'm an Audible fan. I read so much of my finance industry, contracts, different proposals, different things, that for me to read a book, my brain, I fall asleep. And it's not because the book isn't good. I just got so much going on. So for me to take a break in the day, or I'm driving to an appointment, or I'm going out on a trip, I'm flying somewhere, I put on a book. So I'm glad, because I'm going to buy your Audible. I have an Audible account. So I appreciate you letting us, listeners, if you didn't hear that, it's available on Audible. Obviously, you can find it in bookstores. You can find it online. I know that. I looked it up. Again, Ruse: Lying, the American Dream from Hollywood to Wall Street. And for those that want to check out his first book, that was called, or pardon me, it is called Malibu Burning: The Real Story Behind LA's Most Devastating Wildfire. I imagine that'll be a great read as well. Is that available on Audible?
It is, yeah, and I narrate both audio books because they're both books obviously are true stories, nonfiction. I fought the fire to save my house, almost died, and obviously Ruse, I was a corporate spy, and so it just made sense for me to tell the story because it was my story. And that's something I kind of, people say, well, which version do you recommend? I always recommend the Audible version because it's me,
Well,
and
anybody listening to this, why wouldn't you want to listen to the book with that voice? Your voice is genuine. There's character to it. And for those that don't get it, character means he understands tonality. He understands the fact of the pause. I get that when I'm communicating with you. So I'm looking forward to it. I've got a couple other guests that I've had on here recently. I'm in the middle of listening to one of my guests' book, and she didn't narrate it and she regrets it. And guess what? When I'm listening to it, Robert, I'm not connecting to it as much because now she's been on my show. Now we've had a couple conversations. We become friends. And the only reason I bring that up is I haven't done mine yet. I've been getting bugged to do it. And, we'll have this person read it or that person read it. No, I'm going to read it. I'm just going to have to block out a month or whatever, or a few days and just do it. Because it's not that big of a book. It's only 150 pages. So it shouldn't be that hard. But one of the things I wanted to, because we are coming up on already recording for an hour, I could go on forever with you. Because like I said, I've skipped by a whole bunch of questions. I wanted to talk a little bit about IT because I picked up on that on your pod match and Googling you. I, in the past, was an IT consultant specializing in network security and was a certified GX specialist, which is an actual certification that started out in the US. For those listening or watching, it's a global information assurance certification. And because I dealt a lot in networks and I dealt with governments and I dealt with police forces and I did a lot of different consulting work. I had a team of people. We go in and do different things. The reason I bring that up is, can you share with your listeners your take on the current state of computer security and its weak links? You mentioned some of it, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about what your take is on the current state of computer security and its weak links, besides just like your email.
Right. Well, look, my teenager is going to be laughing hysterically about me answering this question because my teenager knows my true technical capabilities are mediocre.
That's okay. Right? But it's your take on it. It doesn't necessarily have to be the technical aspect.
But I think what my take on it is that most corporations are doing a great job at being proactive with their technology to prevent the type of cybercrime we've been talking about, the spying we've been talking about, the ransomware attacks we've been talking about, right? But I know for a fact that the biggest thing, and again, we mentioned it earlier, that they're not doing is they're not addressing the human side of things. And again, I hack people, I don't hack computers. But most ransomware attack gangs, and they are gangs, they're rarely one individual, they're usually small teams of people. And each person on the team, think Mission Impossible, each person on these ransomware teams, gangs, has a skill set. So there's going to be the hacker. Sometimes there's two hackers. Then there's the social engineer, the ruser. That's the person that goes in first, makes some phone calls, tries to find out as much information as they can about the network, the server, how they're set up, where they're located, everything that the hackers need to make their job easier. Then there's someone on the team who's the financial instruments expert, because that person has got to make sure, like, how are we going to get this ransomware paid to us in a way that we don't get caught, that we don't get found out, right? And so these are usually gangs of people. It's not just one individual, right? So it's very, maybe it's not incredibly sophisticated, but it's not unsophisticated, these crimes. And so I think that's my big thing that, I talk about again, and we talked about a little bit earlier, is that if you're just doing penetration testing of the technical, you're completely leaving, you're basically leaving, you're putting a wall in front of your house and the back door is wide open.
No, I can imagine. You probably have done this. I was thinking about this earlier, sitting down with somebody that's higher up in a company that says, oh, we have no issues, and saying, well, do you mind if I pick up your phone and prove to you that I can get information in the next few minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. Right? That's what it's all about, is that, like I said, 45
real
minutes.
Time.
Yeah, 45 minutes. Give me 45 minutes and I'm going to find out things that you do not want anyone else to know.
Yeah, I can imagine that would have been just like a major eye opener to all levels of companies, so corporations or even small businesses that don't take it serious. So those of you, and I know I have quite a few entrepreneurs that listen to my show, take it serious.
Yeah.
Like
Especially,
really take it serious. If you're that concerned that your low level people are going to give out information or that you can't train them not to give it out, don't share. Pretty simple, share to the need to know basis, I guess, is what I'd say. And then those need to know basis people that know, make sure that they're always vetting every single thing. If somebody calls them up and just say, okay, what's your name, what's your number, I gotta get back to you, I'm in the middle of something else, just tell them that. You don't have to be fearful of it. Just say, I'm in the middle of something, I'll get back to you, what's your name and number. If they give you your name and number, still go vet it. Right? Don't just
yeah,
assume and call back. Go vet it.
yeah,
Spend the time,
absolutely.
because your
Yeah,
company deserves your trust,
yeah,
your sealed lips. All right.
yeah, yeah.
So, Robert, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving
Ah,
up?
uh, great question. I say take the journey you want to take. Take the life journey that you want to take. I've had many careers now, and I'm glad I had all of them. Am I proud of some of the things I did? No. Did I learn from them? Yes. Are they a heck of a crazy good story? Yes. So, go on the journey you want to take, not the one your parents want you to take, not the one your partner wants you to take, not the one your friend wants you to take, the one you want to take because it's your life.
Well, yeah, we're all unique individuals. Those listening and watching, I haven't talked about this in probably 50 episodes. Just always remember your uniqueness is as unique as your fingerprint, and you deserve to shine in your own way and your own light. And those that don't support you, even your closest friends and family, isn't necessarily because they're against you, it's because they don't understand you. And guess what? They don't need to understand you for your light to shine. You need to do what you need to do. Find a tribe of individuals. Some of my closest people in my life aren't my immediate family. They're my extended family. Those are people
Mm,
like Robert that want to get me, that want to have conversations, that want to literally interject and say, hey, Dwight, have you thought about it this way? And because their energy level is 10% higher than mine, because that's the type of person they are, I can feel their caring compassion. I'm going to take their information. They're trying to lift me up. They're not trying to discourage me. They're trying to say, hey, have you thought about it this way? That's the tribe of people we need in life, that are
mm,
always trying to help us not be camped and to climb and to move forward and to say, that's a great idea, Dwight. You know what, Dwight? I kind of get where you're coming from, but you ever thought of it this way? They're not being critical of you. They're being compassionate people that want to help lift you up. And the more you serve others the same way, it comes back to you. And that's, to me, is called a tribe. That's synergy. And that's the
mm.
type of people I look for on my podcast. I look to continually build my life. Don't get stuck in that pattern, taught stuff that we have in life, like Robert and I have been communicating about. You are unique like your fingerprint. Go out and shine. Take that baby step. Skinning your knee is not a bad thing, right? Just move forward. So, anything else you'd like to share as a last comment, Robert?
No, just thanks for having me, and very impressed. I give a heck. I'll tell you that right now.
Thanks, Robert. This has been, I'm blessed and highly favored to have so many amazing guests that my brand and has attracted, and you're definitely up there in the top 10. I can't wait to watch and listen to this back. And I was being genuine. I'd love to have you back on in the new year if you're interested, for us
Yeah.
to further delve into, because I'd really like to learn more about your first book and more details about your second. Obviously, we're more what's the word, our lives are more complicated and more rich and interesting than an hour can give,
Right.
and I believe you deserve more than that. So I
Well, thank
appreciate
you, and I'll be back. I'll be back.
it. Fantastic. So our time's almost up. I want to respect our listeners and your time. Could you please let me know what's the best way for people to reach you?
I tell people just go to my website. It's easy. It's www.robertkerbeck, KERBECK.com. You can buy Ruse from wherever you like to buy books. You can buy Malibu Burning from wherever you like to buy books. You can see the trailer for Ruse, so you can get a sense of what the TV show is going to look like. And there's a lot of cool stuff on there. There are articles I've written, my O.J. Simpson articles on there. There's some fun stuff.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Listeners, somebody that's new to the show, you can go to giveaheck.com, hit the portal button, and you can go in there and see the show notes on this episode. And I will have the links to Robert's website as well as his social media so you can check things out. I would highly suggest you check out Robert and the great things that he's accomplished. Good, bad, or ugly, it's who he is and what he's presented to the world. And it's worthy of your time and attention. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Robert. I so appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck.
Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together, let us all strive to give a heck.